Welcome. Okay, we're streaming. Welcome, everybody. This month we have a mashup between our entertainment and sports community, Web3, and now smart data too. So we'll be talking, about some of the things that Alan's doing with Aaron. I think Ian is primarily about film.io and bringing Hollywood to the blockchain. Are these things separate? Or are they all just different pieces of the puzzle? Probably the latter. But
I
Ian,
was hoping to hear. I was hoping to hear more about film.io.
yeah, so good. So we're going to start there, but chime in, Alan, as we
Okay.
start talking about the data stuff. But Ian, would you mind starting? Just share a little bit about your journey, where you are today, and then the platform that can enable all of us to have equal footing with the big guys, something like that.
I just don't, I always think that this conversation starts in a place that people don't expect, because people like to think about money, and funding films is money, and if entertainment is made by money. But Bitcoin for me isn't really about money. For me, Bitcoin is about governance. And I really think that that's this whole conversation, is the conversation of governance. Because money, we have some of the most egregious wealth inequity in the history of the world exists today. And in some ways, it's actually going in the wrong direction. I'm told in the United States right now, more homeless people are being made daily than has happened in decades. So I'm going to say that the people that currently control the money aren't doing a good job, right? And I think that when Bitcoin was born, in its marriage to the blockchain, that it was in response to exactly what I'm talking about, and it was a supposition. Can a decentralized and democratized financial marketplace exist in the world? And remember what I just said. I started with two words that have really nothing to do with money and much more to do with governance, right? With who has the power to control. And I think that the conversation that we're having is a conversation you could have anywhere about anything. So yes, all of this is interrelated. Anybody who is trying to use the blockchain by itself or with cryptocurrency to foster a fairer, more inclusive, diverse, and equitable world is a part of this thing. And the world is trying to figure it out. There's all these weird things going on. I love the fact that the studios seem to be doubling down as opposed to really trying to work this shit out. And it's not just in entertainment, but we at Filmio, this was our little slice of heaven. We as a founding group of people are half technologists and half creative people. And we came together. Me personally, I'm a creator. I have a TV show and a movie I've been working on for a while. And I don't have access to Hollywood. So I saw this as a way to muscle my way in through the back door. But it's bigger than that, right? Although, every single person on this call has a personal reason behind why they're doing what they want to do. And back in the day when it started, I wanted to participate in Hollywood. That was my goal. But I've been eating the dog food and living the life now for, going on 7 years. And if you become a champion of the idea of democratization, of fairness, of equality, then it's kind of not possible for you not to see where it affects and where it plays in the rest of the world. So I like to say that the entertainment industry is in great upheaval today. One of the weird things that happened from the pandemic was Europe started to pull away from being a US-centric entertainment marketplace. The studios are trying to suck even more money out of the revenue stream. And if you think about that for a minute and you say to yourself, there is this global entertainment marketplace. I don't know, you know, you could Google it and you'll see numbers from 300 billion all the way up to, you know, 1.2 trillion, depending on how you parse it, whether you're including advertising and gaming and music and all these other things which somehow can get in there, or maybe it's just the film and television marketplace. But if you say the television market, the film and television marketplace, the number that I keep coming up with is about 300 billion annually, globally. That 300 billion is controlled, the majority of it. The numbers I've read are put it in about an 80 percentile by about basically 6 US mega studios. And those 6 big mega studios, they're controlled by a very small group of people who can legitimately greenlight a movie or a television series. So, I mean, the majority of the entertainment decisions for the world are being made by 30 people. Okay, that is the inherent place where we thought we would start. Is there's got to be a better way. And the blockchain, because of its immutability and transparency and its decentralization, is this amazing piece of software to build this idea upon. And then bringing in cryptocurrency, and this is all, you know, Filmio speak. I'm not, you know, championing it for anybody else in the world, but for us, building in cryptocurrency, and from both a financial standpoint, but also from a governance standpoint. You know, back in the day when we started this, there was this thing called the Howey Memo. And what you had to do was you had to have a Howey Memo, a response to the Howey Memo as your guiding document, your legal document that you would use to define a token as a utility token, not a security token. I mean, you guys have been watching the news. There's so much going on about what's a security token, what's a utility token. If you listen to Gensler, they're all, you know, securities. However, the current rules, the existing rules actually have a methodology and a form for what is a utility. And a utility token is how we offer governance on the platform. And basically it's a token that is used to show support for a project. You know, most of the big streaming services in the world make most of their programming decisions based upon data. And we are in a data world, man. And if anybody doesn't get where, and I know that, you know, for sure, Aaron and Alan, I'm just speaking their language, but this is a data world, man. This is a data world. And Amazon Studios, who is one of the largest studios in the world, makes the majority of their programming decisions based upon data. Unless you're Jeff Bezos and you're willing to spend $250 billion for the $250 million for the rights to the Lord of the Rings, and then you're willing to spend $450 million per season on the Lord of the Rings. And I don't think there was any data used in making that decision whatsoever that was justifiable. But you know what? If you're a rich guy in this country, you can buy really big things, it turns out. So again, maybe part of the reason that we should have better financial governance in this world. And what Filmio is it's a data machine that uses data that it pulls in from the outside and then data that it generates on the inside through activity to create a data model. And what we're trying to do, one of the things I like to say is if you ask 100 people who made the movie they just saw, 90 people are going to mention one of 6 US mega studios. 8 people are going to mention one of the directors they have in their head that they remember. And maybe 2 people are going to actually mention the name of the creator who bled this thing onto parchment, man, who made this thing from their soul. But studios spend billions of dollars for you to think about them. In the Filmio world, we think that projects are real important. Creators are real important, and studios are real important, but that should be equal. Creators who do this should have a better seat at the table than they're currently afforded. It is on some part what's on with this strike. Most of people who are creators are also writers. Not all of them for sure, but often writing and creating come together. And it is broadly known that writers often get screwed. Can I say screwed? You know, by studios in the process of making content. So we think a collaboration between fans, creators, and investors utilizing the blockchain and cryptocurrency to generate the data sets necessary to know whether a project has the potential for commercial viability is a much fairer way to do it. And Filmio is a DAO. It's a decentralized autonomous organization. And every project on the platform is a DAO proposal, and every stake of our utility tokens is a DAO vote. And we believe that this machine we've built, much like Bitcoin married to the blockchain, offers a supposition, which is, can films and television be made more intelligently and fairer and more collaboratively with this machine than in the current way? And we are about to launch our platform publicly to the world. And like Bitcoin, when it was launched in 2009, the question is, will the supposition succeed? And for sake of discussion, I don't think Bitcoin has been proved yet. Until it's mainstream, I don't think it's proved. And I think that's going to happen any day now, but I don't think it's happened yet.
So Ian, you know, we've talked about this before, and I kind of see where you guys are now is, you know, kind of just after the dot-com crash, the, 2002, 2003, a lot of the cream rising to the top. And now you have this platform and infrastructure to build your whole ecosystem to get your films made, manage fans. Could you maybe share a little bit of that? Because I think when people see it, it's so amazing and complex.
Yeah, absolutely. Give me a half a second here. So, you know, it's an important point to say that we could sit around and talk for hours about what would make the world a better place. And I love those conversations. Those are great conversations, right? But at the end of the conversation, that's it. I mean, you might have an idea that might become something, but all you did was you talked about how to make the world a better place. If you're going to try and make the world a better place, you got to do something. I like to use the word build something, but it's just a word, right? But you have to actually have a way to present the supposition and then test it. And, you know, just talking about making the world a better place is it's not doable. And here's the thing. So what I'm about to show you, I can easily say that this is my life's work, even though it hasn't been my whole life for sure. But I have put more of my professional part of my life into this one thing. I was an advertising professional, so before this, I did this for a lot of other people. But this thing is the thing. And what you're looking at here is a global entertainment marketplace for films and television. There are about 100 films on the platform right now, movies and TV. As I said, we are about ready to launch publicly next month in October. So part of the way to start is to consider the user. So there are several personas in the platform. They are fans, creators, and investors. And we have a fourth persona we're going to be bringing on called makers. Fans are the people who love movie and television. That's all but 12 people on the planet Earth. So there are like, 8 billion fans. Creators are people who make content. And then investors are people who invest money in content. And one of the beautiful things about the blockchain is the ability to allow a much broader part of the world to interact in the investing thing. Remember, in the United States, if you want to be an investor, you have to be an accredited investor. And I don't know how many people know what the rules are for accredited investing, but most Americans are not accredited investors. So being able to invest in the stock market in this country, and there are some evolving ways, but you pretty much, it's a pretty small group of people. So everyone on the platform has a profile page. And the reason I start here is because one of the things to realize, this is a blockchain platform. And for a lot of people who are going to be joining Filmio who aren't blockchain people, this is the first time they're going to have a custodial blockchain wallet. And one of the things we've done is we've worked really, really hard to find the sweet spot between being blockchainy enough that blockchain lovers will understand the platform, but also being blockchainy less to people who, if you've ever bought and sold crypto on the, then you've experienced what a hash is and what paying gas is and all these weird little nuances in how, you buy and sell cryptocurrency. None of that exists here. First of all, we've worked really hard to create a gasless environment. So whenever you do things with tokens on the platform, there's no fee for it. And this is my wallet on my business account, and I have 697 fan tokens. One of the things to notice is 9,000 of them I've earned by supporting projects. And there's this long list of all these different things I've done. I've done 730 things. And here's some notification. I staked some tokens, I claimed some tokens, and I did some things. Anyway, everyone who joins Filmio will have a profile page, and it'll look like this. It'll have a header image. It'll have a DAO membership journey. It'll have some information about them. It'll have their recent activity. It'll have a newsreel where they can communicate outwardly to the world. It'll have projects if they're a creator or not. It'll have connections, the people they follow and the people they're following. And lastly, like I said, it'll have a custodial wallet. And then your job on the platform is, if you're a creator, it's to grow audience, raise money you need, and find distribution. And if you're a fan, it's to support the projects that you want to see succeed. Because as I said, one of the ways you could talk about this platform is as a commercial viability prediction machine. Another way you could talk about it is a social media platform. And one of the things that I like to point out is we accommodate a lot of different types of projects on the platform. So a project can be just an idea. And the minimum viable project, I love absolute zero. So here's a guy who's a teacher in California, and he was watching his students interact, and he got an idea for a science TV series for kids. It's not, it's not an Avenger movie, but I just love the story behind it. And, he put his project on the platform, and he's using the platform to try and get his project made. He's looking to build audience, he's looking to raise money, and he's looking to find distribution. But as an example, this project, Sora City, is much farther along. So Nate has finished. I mean, this project is in the can. Nate put this project on the platform because he's looking for distribution. He's also looking for some small finishing funds that he needs to, to finalize one issue that came up in the creation of the project. But my point here is the only projects that don't really have a natural reason to live on this platform are projects that have been fully distributed, you know, in the can and fully distributed. But any other project in any state could easily exist on the platform. And one of the things that I think is an evolving aspect of this world is building audience. Remember, I said I think everybody should be equal. Well, what I tell creators on this platform is you not only need to build, you know, audience around your project, but you need to build audience around yourself. People want to know who you are. People want to know why you're making your movie. And when you put your second project on Filmio, you want to bring all of your audience from your first project to your second project. And all of a sudden that starts to elevate these creators, these people with these great ideas, to a higher level of status. And we think if they're able to build a rabid audience around their project, they're able to raise all the money they need for production. And we give them crowdfunding tools, we give them NFT tools, we give them decentralized finance tools, we give them machine learning and artificial intelligence that connects distributors and high net worth individuals and film funds. We try and expose them to all the different ways that they could possibly raise money for their project. And then we have a artificial intelligence machine learning matchmaking system that allows creators and distributors, or what I like to call licensor acquirers, to preset what they're looking for, and then the AI uses the machine learning and that data to put them together. And because everything is about data, a project is trying to grow their data score. And we call it a GO score. I call it a commercial viability prediction score. But like I said, it takes all the data on the platform, everything everybody's doing. And then it also brings in all the data from, as an example, the open source movie database and Google Analytics. So all of the data, financial and human data relevant to all the projects we know and love, gets brought into the system. So when Nate hires Ron Perlman to be one of the voices in his movie, how much does the fact that Ron Perlman is attached to this project increase this project's potential for commercial viability? We, in fact, think that we're pioneering a data set that actually doesn't exist in the world anywhere, that's based upon this collaboration, this marriage of all three of these groups, that we think once it's up and running and filled with millions of users and doing its thing, just based on the earliest feedback and numbers we're starting to get, that you know, this thing is going to work the way we think it does. And it's real simple. You as a fan, you go on, you find a project. I'm going to use this. We just added this project today, and I love this project because what is it called? Bitcoin saves El Salvador. And I have a vested interest in Bitcoin saving El Salvador. I won't lie, you know, I want cryptocurrency to succeed. So, and I want to stake some tokens to this project. So I just go and I say, I'm going to stake some projects. I go to number, and a bunch of things happen. First of all, it's being written to the blockchain where it will live immutably and transparently. And every transaction has a polyscan record that shows you all of the transactional data for everything, because of the blockchain, which is immutable and transparent forever. And that's part of how you foster fairness and equality. The other thing is in establishing your DAO, how your DAO works, to use things like we did, like quadratic easing and some other things, to make sure that the people with the most money or the most tokens don't have inordinate power, because that's the world we exist in. So, you know, and these are my tokens, so I can unstake them anytime I want. But because I've staked tokens to this project, and I have to be honest and say this project was literally added to the platform about 2 hours ago, I've started to earn some fan tokens, which is part of how I increase my governance. The more fan tokens I have, the more projects I can support. The more projects I can support, the higher my reputation will grow. The higher my reputation will grow, the more governance authority I get. So there are all these things that play into the algorithm that defines what an individual's governance authority is, and none of them are about how much money that person has. It's about how much they use the platform. It's about how accurate they are. If, as an example, Andrew supports this project and it gets made, and I support another project and it doesn't get made, the algorithm thinks Andrew's better at predicting commercial viability than I am. And the more Andrew does a good job and the more Ian does a bad job, the more the algorithm learns that Ian doesn't know what he's talking about, and Andrew is a predictive god. Using data as a way to fairly distribute governance, I think, is the only thing that's happened in the last, century, that actually potentially has the ability to make this world a more economically fair place. I will stop talking again.
I love it, Ian. If I could add, I would just say that when you say that this is governance, this is what you're showing everyone, right? It's the ability for any number of people throughout the world to come together. And I'm going to say it this way because I think it's useful for non-programmers to think this way, but it allows a group of people to, quote, play a game, end quote, with one another. When we interact with like Google, right, for a search engine, or Facebook for a social platform, we have zero control over how those platforms work and how they change over time, and how our investments in them, how we get a return on those investments. We often get no return. The governance that you're describing allows people to collectively act, to collectively build, and to collectively govern some kind of, quote, game, end quote. In your case, the game you're playing is this game for creators, right? But it could be a game for figuring out how to deal with garbage in the world. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter what the community wants to go and try and build a game to solve. But it's useful to think of this as a community created game.
I'm going to even double down on what you're saying, Alan, because you're dead right. And in fact, he was on this call a little while ago. He still is. So our chief product officer is a guy named Corey Hertz. Hey, Corey. And Corey is, part of his love in the world is gamification. And he and our CTO, Chris Davis, are both huge fans of game theory. And one of the things that we did is, if you're building a marketplace for fans, regular people, one of the things that has been proven over and over again is that game theory successfully inspires activity. So on the Filmio platform, one of the things is a DAO journey. And the DAO journey is the thing that tells you what you need to do to get more, right? And it's like, if you review projects and you share projects and you follow projects, we'll give you more tokens, and we'll give you 100% of your airdrop tokens, and we'll give you an avatar ring. And the thing is that once you build these technologies into the platform, as an example, one of the other ones that I think is really cool is this idea of being a super fan, which is another thing you can do at every project. By providing growing support, you can level up your status on that project as a super fan. And the higher level super fan you have, the greater your bonus is in your staking reward. So, right now the FGR, which is what we refer to as the fan governance reward, which is basically an APY for earning tokens. It's something that defines what your token reward will be over a 12-month period. It's set at 100%, but the platform's closed. When we open it, we'll probably set it much lower, but the bonus that you receive as a super fan is yours regardless of what the FGR is, and you can level all the way up to an extra 20%. So I think like you were talking about, Alan, that the whole world has kind of been getting trained for a while on pushing buttons, right? That's what we do. We push buttons. When we're playing games, we're pushing buttons. When we're, whether it's on a little handheld thing or it's on a computer, we're pushing buttons. And we've decided, because all our devices have buttons, that buttons is a thing, man. Although I still think that sitting in a restaurant doing this every time you want to do the haptic thing for your new Apple Watch is just weird, but it's a brave new world. What can I say?
Ian, how do y'all govern like the DAO of film.io? Like how do people interact with this platform? And let's say you decide, or you have people that decide that you're going to take, I don't know, half the money out of every project. I'm not saying you would, but you see these kinds of activities occurring in, say, streaming platform. We see it everywhere, where investors want to build yet another gatekeeper and yet another intermediary, and they take yet more out of the middle between two people transacting. What kind of governance did you guys put in place so that the participants in this platform have some sort of transparency into how it all works?
So right now we are a soft DAO, and what that means is we're still pretty centralized, and we're in the process of defining our decentralization path. And we are on, I think, version 3 or 4 of our DAO constitution rules. We have a basic constitution that we developed that talks about what our philosophy is, but a specific series of rules. As an example, what are the requirements for you to be able to launch a proposal? How does the proposal you launch have to be vetted against the healthy ecosystem? There's a whole bunch of checks and balances that have to go into place, because ultimately how this place functions will be up to the people who have fan tokens and how they create governance proposals and vote on governance proposals. And our commitment is to a fair, equitable, inclusive, and decentralized way of doing it. And while I have to be honest and say on a little bit, some of this is a little over my head personally, everything that I've read so far in this thing that we're creating has felt right to me. And my founding partners have the right mentality. And the last part of it, which is the really important part of it, is how you build your legal structure. And I'm not going to go into detail here, but when we started formalizing how to build this thing, we did this in concert with a long time attorney who is no longer with us, unfortunately. And he had been both a former SEC regulator, and he'd also studied the 150 years of international case law around ownerless foundations. And Filmio is a not-for-profit ownerless foundation, and I don't actually work there. I'm an executive advisor, and I own some tokens that interact on the ecosystem, but I'm just an executive advisor, and it is the structure that is also a part of the story. And we as a company sat out with a foundational idea from the very beginning that we would always be regulatorily compliant. And I always giggle when I say that, because what's lacking in the cryptocurrency world is mostly definitive compliance, right? Regulation, definitive regulation. The cryptocurrency market is this weird place that suffers from lack of regulation more than regulation. And that lack of regulation is used as somewhat of a weapon, which is, I think, why so many people want Gensler out of the SEC, but that's a whole different thing. Anyway, did I answer?
Well, yeah, you did. So what you described is a constitution. You described a nonprofit. So there's the elimination of this for-profit, this ever-present, omnipresent, inexhaustible, for-profit motive that has been set aside. There's a constitution, right? There's the capacity, although it's unfolding, is I think many of these DAOs, they're big experiments in governance, right? And so I want to compare and contrast this real quick, though, right? So let's compare it to like Google as a search engine. We have no control. There's no constitution for Google's search engine. There's no transparency in how it works. There's no voting mechanism for us to decide how it should work. There's no setting aside of the for-profit interest to ensure that
same thing with Facebook and Twitter and
on and on and on and on and on and on.
These are centrally controlled corporations, like every other centrally controlled corporation forever.
Mm-hmm. And so when you started this out and you drew that distinction, is that this is really about governance? That I think you just got right at the heart at it. Where is Google's constitution where we get to vote on how it works? Where's Facebook's constitution?
I'm going to give credit where credit is due, but my executive chairman and that lawyer that I referred to, Jay, who, together they, and even weirdly enough, back in 2016, we filed our first patents and we'd come up with this thing that we called block rings. And it was consensus decision-making. And as we went down the process of trying to turn these into patents, we came into, the time of the DAO, and people were like, a lot of your stuff sounds like DAOs.
Same thing happened to us, but you're farther along. It sounds like you guys got some.
Yeah, I wish I could say
you guys are farther along.
It was my genius that foresaw the future, but no, I just wanted to make movies and TV. I got dragged into this on some level, kicking and screaming. One of my favorite stories is the first meeting where the guy said we need to migrate to blockchain, and I looked at him and I said, "What's the blockchain?" The rest is history.
You should have stopped there, Ian.
Mr. Cantor.
I'd like to place a vote as a member of the DAO community. Is that okay that I do an ad hoc vote?
For this community right now, is this a DAO? I think this is a centralized experience controlled by Mr. Layton. I'm just saying.
I'm attempting to join this DAO, and as an outsider.
You already have joined this DAO.
I know, but what I'm trying to say, dude, is that if I can't create a project, I'm not participating. I don't want to just be a spectator. I want to create a project.
I know. For those of you who don't know Mark Cantor is a friend of mine, and he is one of the OGs of this world. He just is. He back in the days of Netscape, and if you've been around long enough that you know what Netscape is, then you know that in the first browsers, right? The first time we actually saw shit through the internet from other places. And he's one of the champions of that. He's also a major pain in my ass who's always on me about him not being able to add a project to the platform yet.
Yeah, I wonder why. Why would I be upset?
Any minute, that's going to change any minute, and then you're going to have nothing to whine about, dude.
And by the way, don't be associating me with 10-year-old technology. The browser was 10 years after I was in the industry. There actually was a world before the internet, if you can imagine that.
Yeah, there wasn't.
Okay.
There were bulletin boards.
There also wasn't brick phones,
That's right.
It was bulletin boards.
Yeah.
Remember those?
Before it was called America Online, it was called
MCI.
Anyway.
I actually ran a bulletin board.
Ian, that's for sure.
I actually ran a bulletin board out of college. I pulled down the Interstate Commerce Commission database, and I had truck companies paying to be a member of the bulletin board so they could find each other and trade loads. I didn't mean to say it that way, but anyway, yeah.
All right, so I didn't come to hear the announcement of the ability to create projects. That hasn't been made yet.
Yeah, it will be. I keep telling you.
All right, so.
But no, that is not what this call was about, was announcing that feature.
Okay, well, doesn't matter. I love you anyway.
Mutual. And even before then, you know what the first browser was? Zork, right? That was the first browser.
All right, so can I tell a Steve Case story?
That's up to David. This is not my time. This is his.
David, it's okay if I
Yeah,
tell it.
what Steve
Do you
Case.
know who Steve Case is or was? He's still alive. Okay.
AOL. Yeah, he's
So
still
before it was called AOL, it was called Earthlink. I forget actually what it was called, but we had the first network-based maze game. It was called Maze Wars Plus. And you could connect Macintoshes together on a thing called Apple Link or Apple Link. And you'd go around, you'd see somebody, and you'd shoot a missile at them. And it was really very primitive. So Steve Case called us up and said, Mark, can we get this game onto this new online service we have so people could do this remotely? In the years like 1986, 1987. And so I said, and we're all ex-video game guys. So I said, sure, Steve. So tell me, what is your frame rate? He says 2, maybe 3 frames. And I thought he meant 2 or 3 frames a second. Yeah. He was talking about 2 or 3 seconds per frame. It was so slow. And I had to tell him, dude, how am I supposed to play a maze game if it
Zork,
takes
baby. Zork. Just
Anyway,
make it read.
that was how I met Steve Case.
That's awesome.
Things were slower in those days.
right. I mean, just having to. I mean, how big were the boxes that you with Macromedia, right? I mean, that was in a box with.
Well, and I should say there was this company called Borland, and they had this thing called Sidekick, and you could, with a keystroke, and I forget what it was like, shift something, you could move whatever this you had on your screen, and this other thing would come up. This is before multitasking, so it was a hack that this thing called Sidekick, which is basically like your calendar and your address book, was in memory. And so you'd hit this keystroke and it would bring up something else on screen instantly. And you're like, oh, what's that phone number? What's my calendar? And then you'd go back. And that itself, the notion that you could do something that would happen instantly, that was the shit. That was what it was all about.
Yeah. That
Still
was
is.
It's interesting to roll the clock back this far because you guys will remember, way back in those Netscape days, the word disintermediation, right? The idea that we were all going to be able to connect to one another and transact with one another. And all these intermediaries that we had to work with in the physical world, we could go around them all, right? But
so how'd that work out?
Yeah, I mean, while some of those traditional intermediaries did fall away, they've been replaced by even larger intermediaries that are these big digital gatekeepers. Yeah. And there's a root cause to this. And I know this gets back to me just doing my little pitch here, but in 2012, the standards bodies were working to protect our digital rights by attaching contracts to data, and big tech shut down all that funding. And so a world unfolded where there are no standards for our digital rights, which is one of the reasons why this blockchain stuff is so transformative, is because it just sort of happened out of a need. But we're sitting on the tools today for that disintermediated future that was supposed to unfold it now.
Alan, have you tried film.io yet?
Yeah.
And so would you say, I'm just going to scale of 1 to 10. How understandable is it? Like, to the degree of you can grok it, would you call it a 3, a 7, or a 10? You're muted.
Yeah, I haven't really gotten into it and looked at it. I don't know that I'm qualified to assess that at this point.
Okay.
But,
so here's my problem.
Yeah.
It's really hard to understand. And I'm not that dumb. So the only way we can have standards and we can get the disintermediation to like change the world, revolution, is we gotta make that shit understandable.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
for
but it's not a
instance,
top-down only conversation. It's a bottom-up and top-down. It
Okay.
comes from both directions because we keep teaching people how to do things on the internet. And blockchain has been a huge learning curve for a lot of people. Blockchain is ridiculously hard. And this is a thing on top of the thing.
Yeah.
Right, but now with with many of the generative AI tools, it's just right when Zapier came out, it was a life changer for us. Now we can marry systems with APIs very, much easier than we could.
Okay.
I just think it'll continue, look, it'll continue to evolve. I think I heard Mark volunteer to create maybe some type of interface and he's more easily put up a
Dude, I'll take it one comment at a time. When I receive an email, let's say I get a daily digest on my account, okay? That's cool. I can stay on top of my fan points and my bronze level and all my, about 8 or 10 things I got to keep track of. In that email, when I use my mouse and I click, I want to go to my account. It's something about your account and it's telling you about your account. Click, go to my account. It's a really straightforward UX gesture. That's my contribution. Thank you, Corey. Because I've tried every day because I get my daily digest every day. Keep waiting for the most obvious thing. I knew Corey would get it together. Congratulations.
That's funny. Yeah, it's something we just released, but point taken, and it's definitely just an oversight on our part.
I love you, dudes, and there's nothing more I want to have my own project. Hey, Corey, let me get it from your mouth because I've been getting a lot of Ian's mouth a lot lately. Corey,
I'm sorry, you might want to.
When can I create a project, Corey?
Because I think I'm about to tell Mark to fuck off. I think I'm really close.
Corey, I really want to create my own project.
Well, I'm excited that you're excited. We're working out a few kinks, but
a week, 2 weeks, a month. Come on, Corey, give me.
It'll be sooner than a month. Okay. I think we have everything from the code side of things done. We're trying to actually really ultimately figure out the right timing for it.
Okay. Well, Corey, let me just say I have a theme song from 1994 that will be right up there. It's OG, dude. Okay.
Perfect.
It's
right
pre-web. And that theme song's been waiting for the ability for this project to help promote my biopic. Okay. And oh, wait, did I tell you that I'm trying to get Seth Rogen to play me? Okay. Now, I'm not here to promote myself, but
I can see it. That'd be
okay, good.
Count me in.
Because I can smoke just as much dope as Seth Rogen. Okay. And the overlap is almost 100%.
I figured from your shirt that was the case.
There you go. There you go. So what about Sita? Come on, Sita. We don't hear anything from you.
No, it was very interesting. This is my first time joining you all. I don't know how many previous ones you had. Very entertaining, extremely educational. Thank you, Ian. That was amazing, the work you did. And it's very great learning curve for me. Due to the fact that knowing and being introduced to the industry, that it's not my daily operation. It is extremely exciting.
Sita, do you want to tell us something about yourself? Or
yes, I do. I'm actually, I used to be a consultant on medical review of the physicians and nurses, and then I changed my career and pivoted to project management after that. For a while, I was doing the consultant, traveling around and taking different projects on different companies, mainly healthcare, different hospitals. And now I'm situated in UCLA prior to COVID as a FTE. Not bad. UCLA is always good, a safe ground. The projects we are working on, it's mainly for the schools of UCLA and sometimes the Ronald Reagan hospitals. And mainly we are shifted towards the research right now. So there is a lot of research projects that we are working on for the researchers and creating different websites for them in order to consolidate all of the asks and places they want to visit and all the others in details for them. So UCLA is growing. Definitely their projects are coming down the pipeline as for IT infrastructure network, buildings, and all of the others. They're all in the bucket. And we